Welcome to the deep dive. You flagged something really interesting for us, a proposal brewing within the Sandbox DAO called SIP-27.
Yeah, SIP-27. It's been getting some buzz.
So for this deep dive, our mission is to get beyond just the facts. We want to understand what this proposal is truly trying to achieve and what its potential ripple effects could be across the Sandbox ecosystem.
Sounds good.
We're digging into excerpts of the proposal itself, so let's unpack it together.
Absolutely. Right off the bat, SIP-27 introduces, well, a pretty fundamental shift in how the Sandbox DAO Grant Program, or SDGP, operates.
Okay.
The core of it is the idea of electing domain allocators, or DAs.
Domain allocators, got it.
Essentially, it's about creating these specialized roles to manage the flow of grant funding within specific areas, specific domains of the ecosystem.
Okay, so instead of like a single, maybe centralized approach to grant distribution, we're looking at a more segmented model with these domain allocators kind of steering the ship in their area.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. Steering the ship within their domain.
So what exactly will these DAs be responsible for? What's their day-to-day, so to speak?
Well, their main task, as the proposal lays it out, is to oversee how the SDGP budget is allocated. But, and this is key, this oversight is specific to their assigned domain.
Right, not the whole budget.
Precisely. And it's not just about, approving expenditures. It's about actively ensuring that the projects being funded strongly align with the DAO's overarching goals.
Which are? Remind us quickly.
Boosting sand utility, making the sand token more useful and valuable within the sandbox, and driving user engagement, getting people involved.
That makes a lot of sense. So what's the driving force here? Why introduce domain allocators now? What problem are they trying to solve?
The primary rationale seems to be enhancing both the efficiency and the transparency of resource allocation. That's the stated goal.
Efficiency and transparency, okay.
Yeah. The thinking is that by empowering community members who actually have specific expertise, deep knowledge within particular areas, they are just better positioned to make informed funding decisions within those domains. It's about getting the right knowledge, directing the right resources, hopefully for maximum impact.
Okay, leveraging expertise. But, does introducing these separate domains risk creating silos? Less collaboration, maybe?
That's a really interesting point. It's definitely something to watch. You'd hope the proposal, or maybe the implementation, includes ways for these DAs to connect and ensure there's cross-domain synergy. That wasn't explicitly detailed in the excerpts we saw, but it's crucial.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. So how will this election process for these domain allocators actually work? It sounds like a pretty significant addition to the DAO's governance.
It is. The proposal details a voting process where the community will vote for one candidate in each of the 4 defined domains.
One candidate per domain, okay.
Yes. What's interesting is that your voting power isn't locked to just one domain. You can, in theory, distribute it.
Spread it around.
Yeah. But there's a strong recommendation in the proposal to cast one vote in each of the 4 domains.
Okay. Why recommend that? Could that maybe lead to less informed votes in domains someone isn't super familiar with? Just voting to fulfill the recommendation.
That's a fair question. Perhaps the idea is to ensure broad participation across all domains. But yeah, it could potentially dilute the expertise factor if people vote outside their core knowledge area just because it's recommended.
Something to consider. So, okay, the candidate with the highest voting power in each domain gets the job.
That's the mechanism, yes. Highest vote count wins the domain allocator role for that specific area.
Okay, so 4 domains means 4 elected allocators. Let's break down what these domains actually are. What areas are we talking about?
Right, the proposal clearly defines them. First up, Domain 1, Web3 ecosystem integration.
Okay, sounds like connecting Sandbox to the wider crypto world.
Pretty much. Funding projects that link the sandbox more deeply with other Web3 platforms, tools, or communities. Interoperability partnerships, that sort of thing.
Makes sense. What's next?
Domain 2, season rewards and game creation. This seems pretty focused on content.
Yeah, like funding new games or experiences and rewarding players.
Exactly. Incentivizing the creation of engaging content, maybe funding game jams, supporting creators, and also structuring rewards for participating in the sandbox seasons.
Okay, core gameplay loop stuff. Domain 3.
Domain 3 is education, onboarding, and technology. This sounds broader.
Education and onboarding, like tutorials, guides, bringing new people in, and the tech part.
Yeah, initiatives focused on smoothing the path for new users, maybe creating educational resources. The technology part could mean improving the platform's underlying tech, funding R&D, or maybe tools for creators.
Gotcha. And last one, domain 4.
Finally, Domain 4, community engagement and charity.
So building the community itself and doing good.
That seems to be the focus, supporting projects that build and strengthen the Sandbox community, maybe events, guilds, social initiatives, and potentially facilitating charitable activities or integrations.
Okay, quite distinct areas. So these elected domain allocators, what are their actual duties within these domains? What does the job entail?
They have a pretty comprehensive list of responsibilities outlined. Firstly, they're expected to really lead and promote their specific domain
Need how?
by identifying gaps, spotting opportunities, maybe proposing new initiatives or focus areas within their domain to drive progress, kind of setting the direction.
Proactive then, not just reactive.
Exactly. Community engagement is also a big piece. They need to actively raise awareness about the grant opportunities in their domain, encourage people to apply, and even mentor potential applicants.
So part advocate, part mentor too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Definitely. They also work closely with the project manager, the PM, to design and publish clear, predefined criteria for proposals submitted to their domain.
Setting the standards.
Right. And then using those criteria, looking at things like feasibility, potential impact, alignment with the Sandbox's vision, they're the ones who approve or reject the proposals.
Okay, the gatekeepers, but with clear rules they help set.
Precisely. Beyond the initial approval, they also oversee the funded projects, tracking milestones, making sure things are progressing.
Accountability.
Yes. And crucial for transparency, they have to provide monthly updates to the Sandbox DAO forum about what's happening in their domain. Approvals, progress, spending.
Monthly updates. Okay. But how do we know if they are doing a good job? Are there KPIs for the DAs themselves mentioned, measuring their impact on sand utility and engagement?
That's another great point. The proposal emphasizes the transparency updates, but specific KPIs for the DAs themselves weren't detailed in the excerpts we reviewed. That might be something to find later, perhaps in their contracts or by the DAO Council. It's important, though.
Absolutely. Accountability needs to go both ways. Okay, transparency is clearly a theme. Now, when is this election actually happening? What are the key dates and details for voters?
The voting period is live now, actually. It runs from April 16th to April 30th, 2025. So it's happening as we speak.
Okay, until the end of April. And the recommendation is 4 votes, 1 per domain.
That's the strong recommendation, yes. And it's important to remember this initial term is a 4-month pilot program.
Just 4 months to start.
Yeah, a pilot. The elected DAs will get a formal contract for that period, presumably to test the model.
4 months feels short to really prove effectiveness. What do you think they'll be looking for in that time to decide if it continues?
Good question. They'll probably look at the quality of funded projects, whether the DAs meet their transparency obligations, community feedback, maybe early signs of impact on engagement or sand utility within those domains. But yeah, 4 months is a quick turnaround for assessing strategic impact.
Okay, pilot program, voting now. Who are the candidates? Who's put their hat in the ring? The proposal mentions 5 nominees.
Yes, 5 nominees in total, and the admin team apparently vetted them and provided summaries.
Let's hear about them.
Okay, first we have Lancer, Shane. He's highlighted for strong alignment with transparency and disclosure, a structured approach, and good knowledge of community comms channels.
Okay, sounds organized. Preferred domains.
His preferences are listed as either Domain 3, Education, Onboarding, and Technology, or Domain 4, Community Engagement and Charity.
Interesting preference for 2 different domains. Next.
Next is Money, Jed. Noted for strong professional experience, a willingness to learn, good grasp of project delivery, and involvement in Web3 communities.
Professional background. And preferred domains.
Same too, actually. Education, onboarding and technology, or community engagement and charity.
Huh. Okay, 2 candidates preferring the same 2 domains. That could split the vote there. Who else?
Then there's IZ, SeedGov, emphasized for great knowledge of DAOs and communities, experience supporting grants specifically, and dedication to transparency.
DAO governance experience seems relevant. Preferences.
Also prefers education, onboarding and technology, or community engagement and charity.
Wow, okay. 3 candidates, all vying primarily for domains 3 and 4. That's going to be a race. What about the other 2 nominees?
The fourth is Joseph, the Vision X. He's noted for excellent technical skills, especially in game testing, a comprehensive understanding of the sandbox, and clear standards.
Game testing background. preferred domain.
His preferred domain is listed as Domain 2, Season Rewards and Game Creation. Fits the background.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the last nominee.
Finally, Andres Yulewolf, highlighted for extensive Web3 knowledge, technical skills described as a back-end developer and established network, and a great understanding of the Sandbox ecosystem overall.
Tech and broad Web3 knowledge. Preferred domain.
His is Domain 1, Web3 ecosystem integration.
Yeah.
Again, seems like a good fit with the description.
So it looks like we have clear preferences aligning with specific domains for Joseph and Andres, but a three-way preference overlap for Lancer, Money, and Ivy in domains 3 and 4. That'll be fascinating to watch unfold in the voting.
Definitely. And the proposal mentions the admin team vetted these candidates.
Right, you said they engaged with them.
Yes, evaluated their experience against the domain requirements. They also hosted a Twitter Spaces conversation with all the nominees.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and they strongly recommend people listen to that recording to get a better feel for each candidate before they vote. Hear them in their own words.
Good resource. And this voting is underway right now. Do we have any snapshot of how it's looking? Any early results?
We do have some numbers, apparently from April 20th, so a few days into the voting.
Okay, let's hear the current standings.
All right. For Domain 1 Web3 ecosystem, Yulewolf, Andres, is currently leading with about 5.6 million votes. That's roughly 24.45% of the total voting power cast so far.
Okay, strong lead for Yulewolf in Domain 1. What about Domain 2?
Domain 2 rewards and game creation, Joseph is ahead with 4.8 million votes, which is about 21.08%.
Joseph leading in Domain 2, matching his preference. Makes sense. Now the crowded ones, Domain 4.
Domain 4, community and charity. Currently, Lancer's in the lead there with 4.5 million votes, about 19.81%.
Lancer leading in one of his preferred domains. And Domain 3.
Domain 3, education, onboarding, and technology. Lancer is also leading there with 4.4 million votes, roughly 19.51%.
Whoa, okay. Lanzo leading in both of his preferred domains currently. That's significant. What about Ivy and Money?
Right. The numbers show Ivy with 1.9 million votes, about 8.46%, and Money with around 859,600 votes, which is 3.78%. It doesn't specify which domain those votes are in, but likely spread across 3 and 4 given their preferences.
I see. So Lancer has substantial leads in 2 domains right now. What happens if one person wins 2 domains? Can they hold both roles?
That's unclear from the excerpts. Usually in elections like this, you'd expect a mechanism where a candidate can only accept one position, perhaps defaulting to the one they won by a larger margin, or maybe there's a runoff or the second-place candidate gets the other role. But the proposal summary didn't specify that contingency.
Another detail to watch, any other voting data?
It's just that there's a small percentage, 2.92%, categorized as others, maybe votes for write-ins if allowed, or perhaps distributed in smaller amounts. And importantly, the quorum has been met.
Quorum reached, meaning enough votes are in for the election to be valid.
Exactly. It's currently at 75.7%, well above what's likely required. And interestingly, 0 abstentions recorded so far. People are making choices.
Okay, so voting is active, quorum met, clear leaders emerging, especially Lancer in 2 domains. Fascinating snapshot. And just to recap the timeline quickly again.
Yep. Proposal created April 15th, 2025, around 3:14 p.m. Voting started super quick, April 16th at 3:00 a.m.
Wow, fast turnaround.
Yeah. And it runs until April 30th, 2025
Yeah.
at 3:00 a.m. So about a week and a half left to vote from the time of this snapshot.
Okay, so to kind of wrap this all up, this deep dive into SIP-27 shows us it's fundamentally about specializing the grant allocation process in the Sandbox DAO.
Right, electing these domain allocators, these community experts.
To manage funding within their specific areas. And the stated goals are better efficiency, more transparency.
And ultimately driving more sand utility and community engagement. It's a shift towards, more domain-specific governance for grants.
It really feels like quite a significant experiment in decentralized funding and governance for them.
It absolutely is. If this works, it could really shape how the sandbox grows, putting more direct control over funds into the hands of people deeply embedded in those specific parts of the ecosystem.
So as we finish up, it really makes you wonder, right? If this domain allocator model pans out, if it proves successful in the sandbox during this pilot and maybe beyond, could this become a blueprint?
A blueprint for other DAOs. You mean other decentralized projects looking for better ways to fund innovation or community stuff?
Exactly. Could we see more DAOs adopting this kind of domain-specific leadership structure, moving away from purely centralized committees or totally open voting for everything towards empowering experts in niches?
It's a really provocative thought. It speaks to the ongoing evolution of DAO governance, trying to find that balance between decentralization, expertise, and efficiency. Definitely something to keep thinking about as Web3 continues to mature.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for digging into SIP-27 with me. Lots to process there.
My pleasure. Always interesting to see these governance experiments unfold.